Okay, Councilman Fry is absent. Councilwoman Griffin is absent. Councilwoman Burrow.
Here.
Councilwoman Cabinet.
Here.
Jones. Is present. Councilwoman Lipka is absent, and Councilman Garrett.
Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum present. I just would like to say, I just received the notes from the last meeting. I never received them until about 5-10 minutes ago. And I haven't had a chance to look at them. So where do you want to start?
So let me share my screen and then we can make sure that we're looking at everything together. And I do apologize for that. There were some issues with getting the document out with Google and Microsoft playing together. So I suppose that is just what it is.
Can I also ask that they are sent to me because I haven't received them?
I double sent them to you when I did the mayor. So if you haven't gotten them, it's coming from Google.
Okay.
So it'd be like a Google request to view document. So it wouldn't be coming from my email.
Okay, so maybe in my junk file then. I'll take a look.
I'm assuming that's what's happening because I know Tony had issues getting in. I myself had issues when I was trying to test it with my city email. So something that we do have to be aware of going forward, trying to do these live documents. So.
Mayor Jones, are you requiring some time for you to look at the notes? Or is that what we're waiting for? Or were you waiting to get them, Octavia?
I'm waiting for Octavia to get them. Octavia, would you check and see if you get them, please? If you have them?
I can pull them up, but I did submit minutes from the last one that I had done. But I just wanted to be, to remain in the loop. So, but I did have a minutes from the meeting. But these notes are, I guess, really more along the actual changes you want to see in the document.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
True. And we can see those live as we go along because Stephen can pull those up.
Yeah. So I don't. Oh, now I do have sharing conditions. Okay. Boom. Share. Is everyone seeing my screen?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Great. So basically, what the view that you should have is the suggestion view or editing view, and you should be able to place comments. I have a different view, so but you can request like things be changed. And
Yeah, I tested it right before coming on, Stephen, and that is true.
Okay, good. And I know this is a new process for us, so if anyone has questions, I'm more than happy to walk anyone through it. That's not an issue. So I think the only topics that we needed to talk about was we did boards and commissions, and I believe we were on task force and responsiveness of staff and council. And those.
Go ahead.
Sure. And so if we want to just jump into task force, so that one I think is super important in relation to the 2040 plan, because there's multiple instances of that document requesting like task force be assembled for different things. So I think that would operate outside of the mayoral task force that's being created. And so we would definitely want a repeatable system for doing that, because I don't know exactly how those task force in the future are going to be assigned because they have different goals per se.
Well, just before we jump into task force, we should review. And at the last meeting, Councilwoman Burrow said she was going to get in touch with Johnny Little, who was our communication person at the time that the Facebook page, the Twitter page was established. So just wanted to hear her thoughts after talking to Johnny Little.
I have not been able to contact Johnny. Johnny was out of town, so we have nothing from him as of yet. But when we go back to that, the actual, what was in the past, what we're talking about in the future, if we go forward with how we're trying to set this up, then there's going to be permissions that have to be granted. We have never had that before. Here, let me just ask this question. Stephen, were you able to find anybody that was on permissions?
Boards and commissions or on permission?
Permission. Yeah, permission.
No, I'm assuming like the only person that I'm aware of that has access to the accounts is Octavia. And I think that's appropriate that she has the permissions. It's if we want other people using the accounts, or how there would be a transition of usage of new pages that we create, or there's going to be a lot of marketing initiatives going forward and solicitation of different things. So I think current state, we're fine as far as how the social media platforms work. It's just any kind of expansion or changes is where we would definitely want some documentation set up, especially as new things within the 2040 are established. We're going to want like, I know there's like something like a downtown Main Street page that's operated outside of the city, which I think is fine. But if the city were to create initiatives similar, maybe like with the West Flow development, or if we're trying to do, for example, the Northern Lights Parade in the future, like how does that function, or events akin to that? That's what I would be looking for with like permissions, like what account is making those, how is that all set up, and what's the documentation look like? Which I'm hoping is summarized here in these 5 like overarching statements where staff is able to make those things and my points would be addressed. But if that needs to be elaborated further, I'm happy to do that before we get there. Just going over kind of what we went over the last time. We went over rules and responsibilities. I think we handled that as far as like there's current documentation in place. Getting that all set up on the new site was going to be a lot of the answers here, and getting that done. And then kind of alluding to like the emergency notification stuff, but that will be covered more so in responsiveness in that section, and SOPs for that. So, which we haven't gotten to yet. So, and then boards and commissions we covered, and it was more of the same as far as like transitioning stuff to the new site and kind of consolidating some of the documentation and some of the procedures that already exist, and putting them into effect in a streamlined across all boards and commissions. I believe that was the solution that we approached, but again, that'll be up to whoever is making decisions on documentation with the boards and commissions. I'm not certain on who would be writing that up within staff.
I got a question, a Bloom question. Bloom, who would that be for board, for staff?
Hold on. In which case?
In the case of writing up anything that would be, all of this SOP would come under staff to actually compile. So who would that person be?
It would start with me.
Okay, so is that going to be you per se, or who would you assign?
Well, it would depend upon what it was and which areas it touched. So it would be my designee.
Okay.
Do you have any questions or ideas of like what it would potentially look
I've
like?
seen this before.
Okay.
I was not on the email. At least I don't think I was on the email.
Yeah, I will see if that permission gets updated, and making sure that that's getting through the firewall, because that seems to be a consistent issue. It's probably going right into like the unfocused box in Outlook, which I noticed it was doing, and I think verified through Tony and the mayor. Okay, so I guess going forward, or does anyone have any specific direction that they would like to take? Do we want to go over the topics of roles and responsibility in boards and commissions for you, Jeff, or is that something that you would like to go over on your own time and kind of submit comments at your leisure?
I'm certainly, since I missed the first meeting, I'm certainly happy to hear whatever anybody has to say, but I'll be going over it subsequently anyway.
Okay. So yeah, so basically there's some standardization with boards and commissions that isn't consistent across all boards and commissions. Also putting into place timelines for like auditing like viability of a boards and commissions, if there's redundancies or is there additional boards and commissions we should be creating. A lot of this is stemming from the 2040 plan as far as how are we going to start executing on these outline plans. Boards and commissions, task force, communications, those are all kind of things that we hope to see in the SOP. So over the course of the next 20 years, as positions change and as people cycle in and out, they still have the same documentation and opportunity to create success models that we're outlining here at the beginning. That's kind of the goal of these overall documents, and making sure that we're setting up our future selves as well as others that are going to take our positions going forward to be as successful as possible.
Is that documented? Is that level of granularity documented?
I think it will be, or it will be in the resolution. I can do like an abstract up at the top here that kind of outlines intent.
Another thing is, let me just jump in. When you talk about boards and commissions, you've got a lot of overlap, and you got some boards and commissions that have never been activated, some of them that are laying dormant. So you talk about, that would have to be talked about in those particular cases. Should they be merged or should they be deleted? And all that comes into play. And also, when you talk about duplication of effort, duplication of talent, when you talk about the formulation of the board's membership, the applications, all of that has to come into play before you get down to what you just specified, Jeff, as granularity. It's not, I don't think it's anything grander about that. That's just facts.
I guess I was referring to granularity in terms of some of the aspirational items that Stephen had just enumerated, and looking at what was in front of me on the standard operating procedures seemed to be at a much higher level.
So like in boards and commissions, so like how are board members solicited? What does the website presence look like? Future state, current state, and what the requirements of like, so if there's a new board or commission founded, like how are they presented on the website? What's the timeline for when it's founded? How long does it take to get on the site? What's their time frame for getting members together? Those kind of things. Are boards and commissions accessible via social media or other, like where are their presence, and how is what's the government or what's the staff's place in facilitating that and transitioning those as the members change? I don't know as far as what we would want that to look like specifically, but those are the kind of things that we're leaving staff to decide and what role they want to play, and then what's the expectation of those people sitting in those seats.
Okay, so that you know, I was texting with the mayor because it looked like she was speaking, but no one could hear her.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So no, but she's having some troubles with her internet right now. So I'm not sure if she can hear us at all, but it did look like she was speaking, and so I just kind of reached out to her, but she's having some troubles right now.
Okay.
Yeah, because I can't see her at all.
Oh, I see her. I just don't hear anything, and I don't know if she hears us, but she did say her internet was down right now.
Okay.
Stephen, the only other thing I would add to the prior comment is obviously, this overlaps, the boards and commissions overlap both the city clerk and myself. The city clerk has a lot of responsibilities there as well. Staff has responsibilities in terms of providing support to boards and commissions. So it's going to be it depends upon what we're talking about as to who's going to be the lead.
Yeah, and I think the question is not necessarily like we need to know that beyond the point that if they want input now or what's the best. This is really like a gathering of, well, we want to make sure that we know the exact direction that we want these procedures, these standard operating procedure documents to look like. And then when comes time execution, there's minimal questions as possible. I don't think this is necessarily the council or the governing body trying to handhold on what staff decides, but just working together and making sure that all of the touch points are covered, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay.
Is this a case in point where right now we don't know what section the staff is handling and what section the clerk is handling, who reports directly to the council? So we don't know who's on first, who's on third, and who's actually in charge of what. That is a case study, really, for this SOP.
I mean, if you want, I can kind of go through, I guess, what my role is as it relates to boards and commissions. Is that what we want right now?
No, I think what we want is who's on first and who's on third, who actually has the position. And I think that we would have to know first what the staff is responsible for or what they see as their duty, which I don't think Jeff has that right now. Is that right, Jeff?
I have not. You're correct.
Okay, so I would think that it would take some nailing down, Octavia, of where each party is, which each unity is, so that we would be able to decipher who gets what bucket.
Okay.
Yeah. So an example of like a common day thing that we're trying to face now is that there's boards that don't have enough members on it. And so there's not a standardized procedure for triggering the city to start allocating resources to soliciting members outside of maybe the council liaison to just physically ask people to be on there, or whatever remaining members are on there, if there's any at all. So the documentation on that and like if there's no members on a board and it's not functioning, what are the steps to either allocate those positions to other boards and commissions, or like what are the steps with derelict boards and commissions, and we want them functioning and we want their purpose to be in use. And I think, Tony, we have 3 boards that are not up to full membership.
Right, and then we have exactly 3 just right off the top. and several, and I think Octavia can speak to that, several that are not functioning at all.
Mayor, we still cannot hear you. And yes, I don't have, and I actually cannot even pull it up right now. I may actually have it, but like I said, if you want to actually go into the details of boards and commissions, we can do that. And I can also kind of explain where we are in terms of, I just didn't know that we were going to do that today, but I do have it if you give me.
No, I don't think that's necessary, Octavia. We're just stating the facts of what we have to do.
Okay.
That needs to get done.
Okay.
And why what the reasonings are for.
But yeah, I do have the information then in terms of what boards and commissions we have, what vacancies, those that have been dormant, and kind of why they've been dormant. You know, I also have the information on how we've made appointments in the past and so forth. I think that's kind of what Jeff was getting into, was that particular, that's more of the role of the city clerk there. That's kind of the thing that I have, you know, the city clerk, not necessarily just me, but that the city clerk had been doing. And, yep. You know, and then we have different staff members in place for the different boards in terms of them actually operating on a regular basis. So.
Mm-hmm. So is there specific procedural things in place now that can be triggered because we have boards that are non-functioning for any kind of priority solicitation of getting members on those boards, so we can start having benefits of those boards being functional? I think that's kind of like the main point. Mm-hmm. While there is a lot of documentation, and I'm sure you have access to everything, that the point is, like, when do we start applying that information we do have, and whose responsibility ultimately is it to then go to the public and solicit new members? And if that's not meeting success, if we go 5 years and we haven't gotten enough members to be functional, what happens?
So now, typically in the past, the way it's been is it's been the city council who actually goes out and solicit members, but they do that in conjunction with the actual boards and some of staff. So it just kind of depends on the board. So I'll say, for instance, if you have a board like the planning board, right? Where you have a member of the council, because the citizens would then reach out to their council member and so forth, and they would have some back and forth in terms of their interest in serving on the board. But then you would have some staff members that are in that department that may know of some citizens as well, that could then suggest or recommend somebody to the council. But the appointment is ultimately the council's, right? And so again, you may have even that committee. Again, I'm going to stay with planning because it's the easiest right now. You have even some members on that board that are familiar with some of their neighbors or some of their counterparts, you know, from the community that may also be interested. But in terms of appointment, that is actually the board or the city council. Now, how that's triggered is we do it once a year, right? So we do the reappointments once a year. But then as vacancies come up and as applications come in, then you also make those appointments. Anytime somebody falls off or something like that, then you guys are notified. And you also notify that, you know, applications are put in. And so they're just kind of, you know, at this point, they're just really kind of sitting there. And I think they're sitting there now just until everyone just kind of gets themselves acclimated with how the board functions. But that's kind of how it's been. If there's a vacancy that comes up, then I'll notify you all that there's a vacancy. Once you get an application in for a board or another, then I'll let you know that there's an application that has been received. And you actually have a file right now that has some applications sitting in there pending, and that's in the Dropbox.
Okay.
Okay. We might want to talk about Octavia as with the CRB. What we looked at is that we had a number, Stephen, of people that a couple of years ago said, you raised their hand and said, I'd like to serve. And so we're scrubbing that list right now to find out if those people that were on that list are still available, because we have an at-large position available. As with the library board, we've put out several times during council meetings that the library board has a couple of available openings right now. Byron mentioned just at the last council meeting, and probably the last 3 council meetings, that there are positions available. And just recently, another one came available on the human rights where Byron is the liaison. So we have 3 positions there. And I don't want to, Octavia, have you to take a look if you have any applications yet for any of these that I've mentioned, but I've had yet to see an application come through for any one of those 3.
So we do actually have application for CRB, and I just can't access the Dropbox right now.
Okay.
With this, but I think we do have applications for CRB. We have applications for multiple boards, but I know for a fact we do have some for CRB. Now, and but when we talk about CRB, right? So CRB is a new board, just like the Sales Tax Commission Board was a newer board. Those have, and I can speak to those because those have all been implemented since I've been here. And so, like for CRB, that process was different because there was certain training and so forth that they had to go through. And I think that would remain like that because there's always going to be that training that they're going to be subjected to that other boards and commissions may not necessarily be subjected to. So you're going to always find that difference there. But then, so once we implement a new board, then it's my understanding that the council, then they go out and, they start to solicit members for the new board. And so, and like I said, even the liaison, if you're a liaison for their board, or if you're not, it may be a board and someone in your ward or someone in the community that may have a certain skill set or a particular interest in a particular board or committee, and then they would then go and have them to put in the application or whatnot, and then we go through the appointment process at the council meeting.
Thank you, Octavia.
Thank you. So maybe where I'm struggling is that a lot of the not documentation, but notification process, or it's all word of mouth or person interest driven. With the new website, is there like a boards and commissions hub or portal that like lists vacancies or like has updates on like how many pending applications or something like that it kind of like opens up a transparent process or something like that? I don't know what the extent of the website overhaul looks like.
And I don't know that we have that necessarily, but when you ask, so now that you've asked that question, that's something that I can ask. Because I know we're going to have a particular section for boards of commissions, kind of like we do now. But like you said, it's one of those things that we can approve upon, that we can add more information to in terms of what the vacancies are and, the application and so forth. So, but that is a question that I can ask in one of those meetings.
Wonderful. And also, Octavia, while we're on that, what is the roles and responsibility of the staff person that are on these boards? Is that person there for resources? Or are they there to help actually as a member of the board? Why are they there?
So no, they're there for the city resources, basically. So you're going to have a staff member that's in that department that can kind of help them to implement the things that they want to see. But they are not a voting member for the board at all. They're there, just like you said, just to provide their resource, the expertise from the city and their resource. And then, on some of the boards, they serve as the secretary. Not all of them. Some of them have an actual member of the board of commission that serves as secretary. But in some of the boards, you'll have a staff member that serves as secretary. So they're responsible for making sure that they have the notice, the minutes, and all of the documentation and so forth. Making sure that we have all of that in place.
They also tend to be a subject matter.
They are not voting members of the board, no.
Agreed.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Jeff.
I'm sorry, I thought Octavia was done.
Oh.
Was jumping in. But as Octavia said, yes, they are not a voting member of the board. And secondly, I was going to say that they are a subject matter expert. So they're providing expertise as well as support. And to the best of my knowledge, all of the staff liaisons are from functional areas that relate to that board or commission. So Lexi has the pension board, and Dave or one of his people has the parks board. Elliot has the plan commission.
So is there documentation on so are those boards and commissions tied to specific positions, or are they just tied to particular staff members of the time that showed interest or have expertise in that area?
Stephen, they're tied to functional areas.
Cool.
So any board or commission, from what's just been said, that had something to do with finance or money, then we would think that board person, staff person would be somewhere, being a functional person as bean counters. They would be somewhere in the finance. Is that the run of the mill type, what we're looking for there for as far as resources, Jeff?
Well, A, I wouldn't refer to them as bean counters.
I would. So go right ahead.
And secondly, the answer is substantially yes. And as an example, I think we actually only have one finance-related board or commission, and that's the pension board.
Okay.
Likewise, we only have one park. It's some of the others that are less visible that tend to go to whoever has a related expertise.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how far that relationship may be strained.
Okay. And so I'm going to ask you, Octavia, so all of this is documented in I'm going to use this word, I'm going to refer to it as plain English. So as this goes onto the website and everybody can able to see in the transparency piece that we're looking for, everybody would know exactly if they were on a board or was trying to re-establish a board, then they would know just about where resources would come from, or somebody from the staff to sit on that board. Am I?
Well, to some degree, and I mean, I think that's kind of why we're here, right? So
Right.
there can be some improvement on the information that we have. But we do have a boards and commission manual that does outline the different roles of the boards and commissions. It outlines the different roles of, staff and, the city council. But like you said, there are some improvements that could be made based off this conversation. So I don't want to say yes, all of that's there, but to some degree it is, but, there's some work.
Yeah. I have that, what you're talking about. And so what I'm hopeful of is that as we go forward, that we could define this so that any citizen that wanted to take a stab at doing a civil duty or just wanting to be of service would be able to go out and say, oh, I'll take this one because of this, this, and this. And it would be in plain English.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of their questions could be answered right now, but like I said, improvement is always, can always be done.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So just for the sake of time, and I know I'm not seeing the mayor.
No, her internet is down, so she's trying
all the way down.
Back in. Yeah, she's out. Wait, hold on. She's trying to get back in now.
Okay. And I don't want to. I know she wanted to say something on this topic, so I didn't want to move on before she had that opportunity.
See if she made it. I still can't hear you. No.
I can't hear either. Is it possible that she could get on her phone?
Yeah, could she dial in from a phone?
I'll try to call her really quick.
Okay.
We need her for a quorum as well, by the way.
Right. I was just thinking that, Apollo.
Sorry, I'm rambling through. I apologize.
Yeah.
No, but we haven't made any decisions. We can carry on the conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, you can have a conversation, but if if you want to vote on anything or do
Right. We need a quorum for that.
Okay.
For sure.
I don't see us voting on anything. This is just discussion tonight. We have a couple of people missing that I think would have some input if they were present.
Yes. I guess while I don't want to say stalling, but Heather,
I wouldn't call it that.
Heather, you were and I just know from personal experience from creating the technology board, how was that? Was that process pretty streamlined? And like, did you feel like you had the resources that you needed to do that?
Um, yes, I pretty much went through it the same way for both the technology board and the farmers market commission. We basically put together a group of people, like as a just to vet out what the board or commission would do, and not all of those people that helped plan it for a year were members of the board or commission ultimately, but we just kind of kicked the tires every which way and had staff input. And by the time we got done, we had the what would go, what the verbiage would be about what the board or commission did, the the lofty hope that we would have enough members and so on and so forth. But I mean, like what we submitted for the board or commission, I mean, you can look that up. That's pretty standard. But I would say it took about a year of meetings with different residents and like Jeffrey said, please re-enter your subject matter experts.
We can hear her now. Sorry.
Yeah.
Mayor?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay. I just came out of that screen. Okay.
Sorry, Heather. I just wanted to catch her before she undid whichever she did. But yeah, so besides just like getting enough people involved and getting them all on board, there wasn't any issues as far as like documentation on what steps you needed to take. You had all of that, right?
Yes, we had all that.
Cool. Okay. Mayor Jones, now that you're back in here, was there anything that you wanted to make sure that we had documentation or at least took a look at the documentation we currently have for boards and commissions?
No, it's fine. There are some commissions that we really would have to look at if we planning on consolidating them, and some of them you cannot consolidate, such as the Economic Development Sales Tax Board. Right. You cannot do away with that board because it's Missouri statute. So you really have to look at these boards and make certain that we are acting under the Missouri law, that we don't have any problems trying to consolidate boards.
That was never the case. What it would do, when you've got the city and the staff and the clerk all working together, that would be common sense. You can't get rid of anything of that nature. And then there's some, the only way that we would merge some is that they were doing like work, or they were serving like purposes. If they have been non-functional for an abundant amount of time, then that would signal itself. Did we really need it at all? If nobody's suffering from not having it, then what, why drag that along? So it would take each one of the boards and commissions would be considered on a standalone basis to even determine if it's something that should be eliminated or merged.
Yeah, and I think the main, like, why this is being tackled today is like we have a smaller operational staff than in the past, and there's more duties just as technology and society has changed, and we really need to make sure that these boards that exist are functioning with members and actively like doing the duties that we desperately need as a city, and we need to make sure that we have protocols in place that are ensuring success for those boards, and then applying triggers for when they need assistance. Like, how is the city actively soliciting? Because from what I'm seeing and what we're struggling with is that we have a lot of dependency on very active individuals stepping up for a period of time. And if we don't have enough of that going on, there's a decline in action, and that can be automated to avoid those declining speed bumps where there's something going on and there's not the resources we can allocate better as a functional unit.
Okay.
And one of the main things that we are missing is reporting out when there are board meetings of these boards and commissions, what's happening in the board. That some people have minutes, some boards don't. If we had this system set up, we would know on a regular basis. If you just wanted to tap in and without even contacting anyone, you could find out what is literally going on with a board or commission, just because you're able to go and look at it yourself.
Especially when we're looking at long-term projects, and I referred to the 2040 document a lot, but there's a lot of very, very good things and great plans in there, and we want to make sure that the boards and commissions can play their role in there, specifically because these projects are going to take 20 plus years to accomplish.
Yeah, it's a cookie cutter. It's on the shelf. You pull it right down, and it'll walk you right through what you need to accomplish, and compiled by the citizens. So it's what they wanted. It's what we all decided that was the right thing to do.
I'm actually going to pull that up for going over it. If we're good within this call, and I know everyone needs an opportunity to comment and chew on everything, so that's not, we're not like hard committing to this content here today. Once it gets into a resolution format, that's when we need to make sure that everything is very solid. So with the task force, the section, I'm going to pull up the specific points within the 2040 plan on creating triggers and repeatable systems for creating a task force and getting their duties assigned and getting the resources that they need to achieve the goals that they are designed to do. Making sure that those are all standardized, because I believe there's 4 or 5 that we would have to create as a community over the next 20 years. So going with we currently have the mayoral task force that's getting established and getting that set up. Mayor Jones, do you feel like you had a standard process that you were able to follow and get that accomplished?
Yes.
When you were going through your process?
Yes, I did have a standard process. It's business owners and stakeholders, and I looked at what was going to be needed and started talking to the various business owners and stakeholders and nonprofits and asking them to serve. So, yes.
So, I'm sorry.
Is that process? Are you looking for is that the answer you're looking for, Stephen, as far as the process?
I was more saying, was there like the city of Ferguson documentation that you were able to leverage when picking like how you were assembling that task force, or was that something that you created yourself in order to fill that void?
Well, I talk with as the mayor of Ferguson, I created that task force for people to support what I was going to do in the city.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, and I'm trying to pull it up specifically because I know that there was a recommendation for like the walking paths within the city, to address like the 40% of the community that does not have access to vehicles. There was a recommendation to create a task force to make sure that there was an allocation of like, if you start with these areas and getting that accessible, what benefit would that be, and then what's the expansion routes from there. If we were to create a task force to handle that kind of development, is there a repeatable process that we can do in creating a task force for that? And I believe there was another one for developing expansion of downtown infrastructure. And so basically what we would look for in an SOP is like when there is a need established for a task force, who's in charge of establishing that task force when it's needed. Like obviously a mayoral task force, the mayor would make that, but for something with like a walkability of the city, who is establishing the task force? Is that the city manager? Is that the planning committee? Like who would create that task force, and what resources would they have to create that task force? I think is what we're looking for in a standardized document. And if Octavia, if you're aware of any documentation we currently have, or Mr. Bloom, if you have any documentation to that, I think that's what we would be looking for.
Jeff, is there such a thing?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Okay. Octavia, do you see the need?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with anything that we would have.
Okay.
So that one, I guess it's kind of more open and closed than the boards and commissions, that if we can get that documentation going, that we are setting ourselves up for future success with creating task force, specifically within the 2040 plan.
And it goes right along with that same plan for communications.
Correct.
And transparency. And
Yeah.
for the knowledge of the citizens to know who's on first, who's on third, and how did this happen, and what are we going to do?
Yes.
It tells the story.
Yeah, and we definitely want, because I mean, for anyone who's read the 2040 plan and has been involved in that creation, it's a hefty lift, and like the benefits that we get for getting everything accomplished is huge, but there's a lot of moving parts to it, and there's going to be a lot of evaluation on what we can do first, what those benefits are going to be, and then getting them moving. So just the more documentation we have for people that are going to be working on these projects beyond our time is going to be infrastructurally so valuable. So I think this outline is good enough for staff to start that process. And Mr. Bloom, I think that's going to be where we're going to lean on you to work with the staff to make sure that that's as established as possible.
Jeff, do you think?
Stephen, is your reference in particular to the 2040 plan and the calls for action in that, or is it broader than that?
Ideally, it would be broader than that. So hypothetically, a SOP for creating a task force would live indefinitely within the city infrastructure. But I know there's an immediate need for this kind of operating procedure to be drafted, for the fact that in the 2040 plan, there are things quickly. Once that plan is passed, we're going to have to start executing on it. And if we know exactly how we can create a task force and get that moving, that's going to just help us going forward. And then people that maybe aren't here in these conversations today, they'll know when they see task force how to operate.
Mhm.
So let me bring up a point about the 2040 plan. I mean, that's kind of a guideline. It's not necessarily an a project plan.
Mhm.
It's a directional appropriate for the next 20 years, so that we have to have that in order to get parks grants and other things. But like what's all in there isn't necessarily what's going to be delivered within the next 20 years. I just want to make that clear.
Yes. No. There's there's
I mean, when you say you're going to put like task forces need to be put together to attack, whatever's on there, I just don't want residents to think that everything that's in that plan is going to happen. That's just unrealistic expectations.
Absolutely, and a lot of reading through the plan, and we can talk about that. There's a lot of time frames on those, and most of them are ongoing or in indefinite plans.
Right.
So like there's not necessarily open and closed like completion date for a lot of the recommendations, and that's what this plan is truly is a series of recommendations on what we do.
Okay.
And that's why specifically with something like a task force. If we have the infrastructure to do that, if we're for the future residents or future government or future staff that's outside of like in the year 2060, they have documentation and opportunity to leverage content like this. Where,
Agreed.
yeah,
Agreed.
that's what I'm alluding to.
Okay. I just wanted to make that clear for everybody else. It's not a magic wand, and we're going to be there in 20 years. So before we leave the task force, the topics addressed, I know we brought up transparency and communication. If there is a task force formed, it should be communicated. Period.
Yes. That's a dot, right? A period. Okay. Good point. For both of these conversations, what just came up, thanks, Heather, for bringing that up, because it is the 2040 plan is just that. It's just a plan. And as we can all attest to with the COVID, that something can happen and it'll change all those plans. But what is not going to change is that when something is started, there needs to be a way to communicate that to the citizens, to the council, to the staff, to whomever. If you think it, ink it. Somebody should know that it's happening. So I appreciate you for saying that it needs to be communicated no matter what we start, no matter what plan it is. 2040 plan, I like the whole concept, but everything in that plan has to be communicated to the citizens. Otherwise, we have not done our due diligence.
Can we move up one section up, Steve?
Yeah. Sorry.
Just go back to the desired topics addressed.
Task force.
Yes,
Mhm.
because we've got a step for how do members apply to participate. The next question should be, who selects the members?
That is an excellent point.
A lot of times some tasks for some commissions, some boards require people with very, very defined skill sets.
Specific skills. Yep. You're right.
Like, plan commission, where you've got people that are actually making decisions about what kind of buildings we build.
And that came up in our communications portion of about who selects members and what the criterion for selecting members were. You remember that, Steve, when we first started talking about communication? So yes, Mr. Bloom, that is a portion that is already in the communications piece, and on the backside that would come up, because that's very important. That's why we talk about transfer of knowledge. Some people are sitting on boards that don't have a clue about what the board is about, but they were a friend of somebody who said, come sit on this board. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're just sitting there and have no clue about economic development if they're sitting on that board, or if they're sitting on the land mark board. They don't know what they do. Even if they're sitting on the senior citizens board, there's so many things out there that's giving away thousands of dollars for senior citizens. And do they know that all they got to do is write a note? They don't even have to write a grant to get it. And so there are a lot of people that are sitting on these boards don't know what it is that should be done.
That's why when you go out and talk to people, what I do, I'm just going to share what I do. For example, I'm going to go back to the Board of Adjustments. And when they needed someone, I talked to an architect who lives here in Ferguson and talked with him to be on the Board of Adjustments, gave him the information for the Board of Adjustments, see if he had any questions. Then I gave him the application to fill out for him to submit. So it basically comes down to the council people who are asking these people to sit on these various boards to make certain that they understand what the boards are all about before they start asking people to submit an application to be on one of the boards.
If it was on the application, what was needed for a particular board, like in some of these boards, it would be well if you knew how to read a financial statement or if you knew anything about budgets. Again, I will say there are people on these boards, no matter how they got there, maybe the person who solicited them was not a council member. I know for a fact council members don't solicit everybody that gets on boards. I know that for a fact. So you can't put that at the feet of a council member. What happens, a person think, oh, I want to do something for my city. They see an opening there, they sign on, but it was available in writing what it was necessary for that. Do you have an acronym for this? Or do you have an acronym for finance or for whatever it might be? Then if that was on the application, if that was clearly spelled out. So I back up on laying that at the councilman's and you know, rah for you going out doing it the way you do it, but everybody doesn't do it that way. And there are members on these boards who sign up by themselves and that's their right. So I'm thinking if we had this communicated when they apply, what do you think, Ellen?
Well, it should be explained on the application as to what they're looking for. I think it's a couple of lines on there asking them about their expertise and why they want to be a part of the board.
Yeah, I can't spell.
That's it, thanks.
All right. So just, I know these two are going to be really important for Mr. Bloom as you weren't here last time, so we want to make sure we have ample time to go over these. So we've had conversations about communications between staff and council and external, and I know you're working on stuff now currently. Is there anything on outside of that you would want to be tackled going forward as far as like those communication channels? I know we're working within like emergency parameters, but like with that process, is there anything that you're hoping to lend from us in going forward in doing more processes and procedures like that?
Not at this time, Stephen.
Okay. So we can move on from that one unless anyone had follow-up from the previous discussion. I think we we covered a lot of this already, so I think that one's fine. And then we're back to communication within social media and how we're going to make sure that we have every opportunity going forward to communicate through those channels. So I'm pretty satisfied where this document sits now, as far as making sure that we have a rough outline of what needs to be on everything. Tony, as another voice really pushing for this, is there something on here that you haven't seen addressed or that you think we need to tackle at this time?
Have not seen addressed. Actually, the reason for this is because we don't have an SOP for transfer of information.
Mm-hmm.
That is a serious issue that we face right now. When you know it, that's when, and let me just use who gets the information first. Whoever gets the information first, that's the person who should disseminate it out to the council. We can barely do our jobs if we don't know what's going on. And too many times that has happened recently and even in the past. So this is not just now happening that we need an SOP. It's been going on. I've been talking about the SOP for 2 years now. So I'm very disappointed that we have not had this before. Standard operating process and procedures should be the norm for anybody that is in city government.
And I think too, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry.
Councilwoman Barrow.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I think too, we've seen where there's not a consistent method to get information out. Sometimes chief will put something out on the police department page, but council hasn't been made aware of it yet. So if you're not sitting on top of social media day in and day out, that might not, like I always check email. And I don't want to be so archaic as to lock something in like you must send an email, because that'll change with how technology changes. But I think that at a bare minimum, if something is being put out to the public, it should be disseminated to council as a rule. Like at the same time, I don't even need to know it beforehand. I just need to know. And social media is not a great way to get everybody, because I know, Tony, you're not even on social media.
Not at all.
Right. So we need a more consistent method of making sure council is aware, and if that's text messages, because I know we're all on, a text chat for various things, or email through our Ferguson email, whatever that is, council should know when something is going out.
I agree 100%.
I know we don't want to be tied to something specific just for like changing technology pacing, but maybe there needs to be something that is standardized just for like the time that we're in, and then leave a trigger open for like the council to vote.
And that's fine. You can wordsmith it, like email or text currently, whatever in the future, however you want to wordsmith it.
Okay, yeah, because like I think like there are times when we're notified.
Nice word.
It's the end of the day.
I know.
Right.
Okay.
For Jeff on the responsiveness of staff and council who wasn't on last week, when we talk about the rolling calendar, and in a rolling calendar, what you will get is a Gantt chart if you're doing it right. And so And I don't know how you can do a rolling calendar without doing it right. You get a Gantt chart. And so what that leads to is that at all times, I don't need to know if the city manager is telling me everything that he knows. I don't need to know if the mayor is sharing her projects with us or not. I don't need to know if I'm doing something that maybe you, Stephen, or maybe you, Heather, don't know what I'm doing. If we follow what we had, and we had even said this back in our last retreat, that this is what would happen from the city manager. We would have a rolling calendar. And we even required it of the last actual city manager, that we would have a rolling calendar. This way, it depends on who you know from the on the council, whether you're going to get some information that you need. And any information that is being held by the interim or the actual in-place city manager that concerns this city ought to concern the council, because we are who the constituents are looking to keep them informed or to work in their best interest. The mayor being a spokesperson for the city, and I don't care who the mayor is, but the council members should not have to look at CNN or whomever or Channel 4 to find out what's happening in the city or what's going to come to the city as a proposal or a resolution or a policy, and we have not even discussed it or heard anything about it first. So that's where we talk about responsiveness of the staff and the council here. We ought to be like hand in glove, and we ought to be able to know what is happening in this city at all times. And so how information can be handled without that, that is no transparency. I can't be transparent to the people that went to the poll for me if I don't have the information to share. So when we go through all of these things, it is pertinent information that needs to be had. This is a process and procedure that must be held, or otherwise we're all just out here by ourselves. Nobody's leading anybody. Who's on first, who's on second? Everybody is, the whole field is open from whomever. So am I clear about that? Anybody have a question for me on what I mean?
I do have a follow-up, just going back to like understanding like what projects are going on, because a lot of these are for years and years, and so there's going to be new people coming on to pick up where someone else left off, and the documentation outside of like what resolution was passed or what the minutes were of that meeting would probably be very super like important for them to have to pick up a project, understand where it's been. I like to think of the Halpin Park, my first foray into like, oh, something was passed 3 years ago and we're doing something now that's kind of related, but it's slightly different, and having to go by word of mouth on what those standings were in order for me to make an informed decision. It was okay because like people were super helpful and in explaining what was going on. But there's also a world where I could just come in and say, okay, we're here. This is all we're doing. Perfect. Just.
And Stephen, I think what you're saying is you shouldn't need to be an archaeologist to figure out like how to hit the ground running.
That's exactly right. Octavia has said many times that we need an orientation, and she's put some things out there that were very helpful for me. But I feel your pain, because the first time I heard about helping Stephen was when somebody was doing a presentation on it. And I'm like, what is this? And so that I had been sitting on the council for 2 years plus and didn't know anything about helping until that day. So I'm telling you, I feel your pain, and those are the kind of things that should not be. And an orientation would have been great.
And that's going to go beyond my time and beyond everyone's time, and it was before everyone's time here that these things could be helpful. So it's I think if we can get something pretty established as far as like project management, whether it's some kind of historical documentation or some kind of inventory where anyone that has a resolution coming across their desk, that they can look at the historical information and make an informed decision without having to lean on the, I don't want to say persuasion, but like the words of other council people, and they can make a decision on their own based on the information that is objectively available.
So what I'm hearing is, Stephen, when you was appointed to the seat, you did not get an orientation?
I came in under very different circumstances than probably most people did. I did sit down with Octavia, and she walked me through a lot of different things, and it was super helpful. And I had a Dropbox of information that I've been slugging through. But I don't know if the way at that time, because of COVID and everything else going on, if I had a very normal orientation.
Well, I came on the council 2015. I did not get an orientation at all. Wesley and myself and Brian Fletcher, we did not get an orientation. No one took us around Ferguson. No one introduced us to the staff. However, after we were elected and on council, orientation was established. So I know when Laverne Mitchum came on council, she came in basically appointed and she received orientation. So I don't know if Heather received orientation, Linda, and Tony.
Well, so yeah, Mayor Jones, when I was elected the following year that you were, yes, I was taken around to city staff and kind of given what needed to be done. But I think that what Stephen's getting at, and I think this is important, is the projects that are currently underway. If you, like, you're looking at a snapshot in time, right? So just like the projects I work on at work, you know, like at any given point, you should be able to say, here's where it is, here's the history. You know, if this is something that's important, you should probably learn more about it. And there was a place to go to say, to see how the project had progressed, like where the hiccups were, where the roadblocks were, whatever. Then that would help new council members hit the ground running a little more. So, you know, for the street projects and the, you know, 2040 plan, all these big projects, just to have a place to see where it's been and where it is now. That's what I think would be as helpful as meeting everybody new and finding out how to navigate the Dropbox.
I would like to piggyback off of that, and that is exactly true. The orientation that is being activated now, and the same one that Steve got, and probably anybody else that got an orientation, I didn't really need that. If what I would have liked to have had, and I'm gonna go back to what you mentioned, Steve, was the helping thing. Because when somebody said, well, it's a done deal anyway, I said, what does that mean? Well, this happened 3 years ago. Then what are we doing here now? I mean, I had about 15 questions, bam, 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 went through my head. What are you talking about? I called Octavia and said, send me everything that has ever been said or written about this helping deal. Because I couldn't get how you approved something 3 years ago, but then we still working on it. And then when it came right down, the conversation that we did have should have only been about a fence. Then why are we talking, well, where's the money? And I guess you can attest to this, Boone, Jeff, every time I see something, I want to see a contract. I want to see some dollars. Show me the money. Show me what's going to be the outcome if we don't succeed or if we overpass it. I want to start and work my way backwards. Well, in this case with helping, there was nowhere to go. It was like, and still to me, an analysis was done that a council person didn't ask for, as far as I could see from the documentation. So, and after the analysis was done by Musgrave, I got no more information. So what is happening with it now? We don't know. It was a wild thing that I could not believe happened. And that has nothing to do with orientation. That has to do with information being put properly and then set before you. Because I felt like if we have had, oh, here's something coming up, gang, and this is the footprint of it. That's what not only a person that is coming on, but I had been sitting in the seat for 2.5 years and didn't know about it. So that's where we talk about the lack of information and the way the information is disseminated. And even the way it's presented when it comes up on an agenda. We got a lot of work to do on communication. And I believe that if we get this done, then this city would flow a lot better, because if you were taking piano, it would be practice, practice, practice. Be real estate agent, it would be location, location, location. But since we're here to serve the public, it ought to be communication, communication, communication. And I think of everything that's on this sheet with SOP, communication is key. And in the spot where we're sitting right now, we've been over this before. And this thing right here with the city manager and the mayor, we've talked about this before. We talked about this most recently with the new administration. So this is nothing new. There's nothing new up under the sun, but it's not being done. That's what the situation to cause us to ask for an SOP. And mostly it's because of the dissemination of the information. Somebody's got it, but it's not getting to the right people.
And we can seek opportunities to lessen the burden on the staff that we do have, as to where you had to ask Octavia for a whole bunch of documentation that I'm sure she had to track down, and that took time. It could have been just listed as a project number, and you can click on that or open up the folder, or like however the execution is not up to me, and I don't mind, and see that documentation on your own and a lot quicker, and then arrive to the same conclusion without using Octavia's time, using whatever time that you had going through documentation that you didn't need to go through. And we'll see that going forward. Like, I know we just broke ground on the Westflow project, and if anything comes up with that, I'll have to go through a lot of documentation to figure that out, and I want to be able to do that and make informed decisions.
Sorry, what project did you say, Stephen?
Like anything that's going on with.
You mentioned a specific one, West something.
I know it was a marketing thing, Westflow, like the Mercy development.
Okay.
So like, just like if they're like, we want to add like another component to developing West Florissant, akin to what happened with what Mercy did. I would like to be able to like, oh, okay, I understand. I know this is about the Mercy process and what they went through to do these things. We can repeat that and do very well. And then just like nothing specifically like that I'm aware of, but it's just like those kind of situations I want to be very informed of if there's resolutions coming across my desk and then I have to make a vote on.
Well, in order to do that, what you're asking for is some form of electronic data capture or database, or there's a lot of different names for it. We're in all of this, wherein we begin to track and to file electronically all of this information, and that's something we don't have.
Right, and that's and again, I don't want this document to speak exactly to execution. I think that should be definitely left up to staff to decide on how to execute on the need. But if it was me doing it, I would get something like Trello, which has boards and tasks and what kind of status it is at, and you label it and it has a project number and a reference, and you can attach like, here's all the minutes that were ever related to this, here's all the contracts related to it, and it's all in a nice little bundle. And that's something of what I would like to see. And I think it would be a huge benefit to staff. It'd be a huge benefit to any kind of government person to be able to pick up any project at any time, be completely up to speed, and make very good informed decisions or help in getting something done.
But something that we do have is the request of a rolling calendar. We've asked that of the last city manager and the sitting interim, and there was a go. Yes, we can do that, but we don't have it. And so for the very present, right now, a rolling calendar with a Gantt and a rolling calendar that will automatically produce a Gantt is something that we could use right now. What you're talking about is fantastic, and we talked about it last week about the project management piece software. That's even something that could be done yesterday and still produce what we need to be a functioning organization that every hand on deck know what's going on.
And Councilwoman Burrow, like for people who don't know what a Gantt chart is, like it's basically a chart that shows what tasks are in play in a project, when they're scheduled to be completed. It's kind of a timeline view of each aspect of a project. So that's kind of a very particular term that I don't think everybody understands unless you've been in corporate America forever.
Thank you. So I don't know how many folks on the call would own up to the fact that we have a communication problem, but I think it's clear to the naked eye that we do. And I would like to see something in the hopper, as I like to say, yesterday, because it's not getting any better. As we can see from the last couple of things that I won't mention right here, the last couple of things that have happened this week and last week, it's not getting any better, our communication line. And so this, if you would think of something that was critical or crucial, I would say it would be this.
One thing that I'll piggyback on that, I mean, we're in unusual circumstances where we are receiving less communication and we're not meeting in person. And so we're a little more distanced. And so it probably is a really good time, because for the next foreseeable future, this is life as we know it. So if we can get really good at communication during a really difficult communication time, I think that would help us going forward when we quote unquote get back to normal. Now's the right time to do it, or in the next year is the right time to do it.
Yesterday and for free is the best way to do things. So I will make sure that this gets out to any council or staff that needs it if they haven't already. I want to make sure that everyone's input is here so we can draft a very good and transparent document, so staff knows exactly what they need to do, and then we know what we can do to assist in that, and then we have a process for making sure that we can accomplish things without having to rely so much on word of mouth and people being in the right place at the right time, because there's a lot of advantages that can be had to making sure this documentation is here, especially when we're all long gone.
I'd like to ask a question of Jeff and even Ella. Is there anything in this section right here that you can help us with as to what you can do in your prospective offices or positions to attain a better profile of how we're going to go forward with communication? Jeff?
Thinking.
Okay, I'll wait.
I think it's yet to be determined, but I will certainly give it ample thought.
if you're going to use an Excel spreadsheet,
Well, that can't be done.
okay,
No.
that,
That's a big waste.
okay.
No, well, we're gonna need something a little bit more sophisticated than that. But I'm not so much concerned with what the product is gonna be, because we got plenty of product to choose from. I'm concerned with the human aspect of it. How are we gonna bridge this team together, the staff and the council? Because where go the head, there goes the tail. And so when we're not leading, what does that do to the different departments, like in police department and the fire department, all of the city mechanisms of working? Where does that go? It's like a kid. A kid knows when you give them the eye, and they used to do it. And my mother used to give us the eye. She didn't have to say a word. 16 people would get in line, including this number 15. So if we were to show a united front with some solidarity, with some camaraderie. We talk about people been coming to this town for 5 or 6 years now, wanting to heal us. That's God's business. So what I'm talking about, how do we, this group of people that have raised our right hand and taken the vow, how do we make the difference? How do we put some things in place that will unite us? That we don't even have to wonder, oh, I wonder what this ward is doing and what that ward are doing, or talking about my people. We don't own anybody here. All of the citizens are who we're serving, working together to serve together. I'm telling you, it doesn't get any better than that. And I think that's where we can talk about communication and all of this that we got going on. But when it comes right down to it, we're going to have to work together to serve together. And communication is the first piece. That's why this piece right here is so important to me. And I know you said you're going to think about it, Jeff. It bears thinking about.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I said it bears thinking about it. And I appreciate you saying that you're going to give it some serious thought.
So I think we're good for like this working session as far as getting input on these particular things. Definitely, if you don't have access, I'll get you access. Mr. Bloom, I believe you're specifically, I need to make sure that you have access to put comments in and everyone can see those comments and we'll get this up to par and then and get the resolution going and get the ball going on every other part that goes with it, just so we can see if this process worked as well as we hoped.
Okay, Stephen, one other thing is that if you're going to do that, allow people to make comments, we need to be able to have a notification. I don't have the time to watch email all day for Google, nothing all day, waiting to see if somebody's going to make a comment. So let me make a suggestion. Mm-hmm. If somebody makes a comment on this document, then they should send an email to whom they want to see this document, so that we will know that there's something out there for us to see. I don't want somebody telling me, I sent a document last Tuesday, and here it is Monday again. So I think that would be something that we ought to commit to, is to letting people know that you have made a comment.
Excuse me, I have one question, Councilman Garrett. With this being a Google Doc, does it not have the tracking mechanism on there? So like as someone makes a change, like you should be able to see it and also the comments alone, right? So you wouldn't have to do anything separate? Okay.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
What do you mean separate, Octavia?
So as you alter the document, it'll show that you're altering the document, and you should be able to comment, like if you needed to make additional comments, but the document will
Right.
show
That, but are you responding to my request that I be made known that you made the comment? Because even if you make a comment, if I'm not watching that document, that don't mean nothing because I won't see it in Google Docs.
There should be a notification when people make comments going out to the users. If it's concerned about like checking in on the document or the regiments, what I can do is put out like there's like a histogram of what the edits were and where it stands, and I am willing to make sure that there's an update sent out. I'm assuming email is okay, or I can do an update during a council meeting on where this stands, if whatever works.
I'll prefer the email because I know for a fact with the Google Docs, it's not going to notify you that something has happened.
Right. Yeah. So I believe that. So I receive it because I'm signed in with my Google account.
Right.
That's outside of the city. So.
Well, is it possible for us to use something that everybody already has access to that would provide that kind of feedback?
I am not aware of any kind of server-based product like this outside of Google Docs. I will use absolutely whatever is best for everyone.
Canvas has it, but Canvas is a trouble. I wouldn't try to get into Canvas right now with all the school districts around the country doing it. I think this is the best one. I think especially if you want to capture all the comments and the history of it. Because even if you used email, it would not, the Gmail thing, it would not capture the history. So this is the only way that you capture everything unless you go Canvas. And then if you go Canvas, you're gonna have to buy it. So I would not suggest Canvas because I go to classes in Canvas.
I'm not a Microsoft user on the regular. If there is a Microsoft product within Outlook, or I know Word's history is tied to the individual file, so it doesn't work necessarily the same way with like history. So if it exists, I'm not aware of it. But if you recommend something that does, I will absolutely use that.
I'll grant you that you're far more of an expert at this than I am. So
I wouldn't claim that, but I try to do my best.
Stephen, you can look at Canvas if you want, but I would vote against it just because of what they're going through right now nationwide, and also the cost. I think the best thing is stick with Google Docs.
Yeah, and
Have you got an opinion on that?
Yeah, I would stick with Google Docs right now.
Okay.
I'm good to go, Mayor. If I don't know if there's
Okay.
other agenda items.
No, we don't. This is it. Any more questions? If not,
Ellen, I just wanted to ask. I had asked both you and Jeff about your opinion as far as what we have for desired topics already addressed. If you had any anything that you would want to declare, what could get us on straight street.
no, I'm fine. I will have to look at this more because I just got the information off the Google Doc. So
I can appreciate that.
I don't have anything at this time.
and I'll be waiting to receive it.
Yes, I will touch base with you tomorrow. If you haven't received it by then, we'll hash out what's going on, because I know me and Councilwoman Burrow had to do a couple back and forths to get in. So, and I apologize for that as well.
No worries.
Well, and I know we didn't have everybody here, but I appreciate the conversation, and I think we're headed for a better path forward. So thank you, everybody, for putting the time in.
I do too. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was a good conversation. Anyone else?
No, ma'am.
Oh, ma'am.
I'm good.
Okay. A motion and a second to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved by Councilwoman Borrow and second by Councilman Stephen Garrett. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carried. And excuse me. Thank you. And I'm still going to work with my computer problems. Take care. Thank you for
Good luck.
understanding.
Good luck.
You know what? Let me just say this. Remember Steve Jobs, remember Gates, and remember Barack Obama? All three of them on their biggest day, guess what? Computer problem.
Yeah.
Ella, we are in good company.
I've been on Zoom meetings all day, no problems. And tonight I have a problem. I appreciate everyone. I enjoyed the meeting. Take care. Looking
Thank
forward
you.
to us to communicate more.
Amen.
Thanks,
Okay.
everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.
Yeah.